So I will be talking about how we worked on this translation, because it's quite an interesting story, about the major ideas of the book and about some selected chapters, and then we will have a brief discussion about the contents of the book and about what strategies of anti-war resistance or anti-military resistance do you have here in Finland, because I'm not from here and I would be really interested in hearing more from you. So, and here you can download the book in English for free, and the Russian translation is also available for free on the website of our publisher. But yeah, you're very welcome to buy it. So, how did we work? It all started in March 2020, approximately a month after the full-scale Russian invasion of Ukraine started. And I was just going through social media, and I've noticed that one of my friends posted about the book called Feminist Solutions for Ending War. And he read it and left a review on Telegram. He is a researcher, so he publishes quite a lot about the books he's reading for his studies. And I became really interested, and I skimmed the book maybe just like in one night and decided that it would be really cool to have some of these articles translated into Russian. So I just started doing that, then posted a story on Instagram like, "Hi, does anybody want to join me in translating these texts and publishing them online?" Because this book is published under open access, so it can be distributed free of charge. And yeah, so in any language. So we gathered in a chat in Telegram or in Signal and started just like translating the text collectively. And we've been doing that for maybe half a year and posting the text on Sigma, I think originally Russian language online platform. It's a bit like Medium, but more academic and more curated. So yeah, and then, we've published some texts. They've been getting some traction, so there was interest in them. And at the end of the year, one of our friends who's working in an NGO said that they didn't really... so they have some spare money from their funders that they need to spend somehow. And they gave us the money, like not much of money, and we decided to spend them on publishing the book. We cooperated with Radical Theory and Practice, an anarchist publishing cooperative in Russia. And tada, after 2 years of work, here's the book. So to be transparent, we did that thanks to the grant funding from the sponsor, who we cannot name, but it's a major European institution. Yeah, something like the Institute of Finland, but from another country. Yeah. So we tried to realize the feminist values in our work processes. And now I will elaborate on that a bit after making a sip of the coffee. So the editors of the original collection of articles, they were editing they were working on the text and editing them during the COVID pandemic. So it was a context of a great urgency and emergency. So they also tried to implement feminist values into their editing practice and writing practice, and made the deadlines flexible for the contributors, helped the writers more than they would normally do that in academia, and so on. And they also described their working process at length in the introduction of the book, so we decided to follow their steps and do the same. I haven't planned on taking on the role of the coordinator or executive editor initially, but it just happened that I started to coordinate the project and started to coordinate the deadlines, the funding and so on, and then became the executive editor. So when we discussed the workflow in the collective, and then when as we implemented that, we also tried to make all deadlines quite flexible. Initially we planned to publish everything in 3 months, then it was half a year, and we were just okay, whenever that happens, that's good. Participation is much more important than the result, because the feminist value of participation and inclusion, and giving everybody a chance to do something that's in the direction of anti-war activism and in the field of publishing, which is really, really exclusive and elitist, as you could imagine. So we tried our best to involve so that as many people as they want to get this experience. Sorry, my German is messing with my English a bit. So so everybody who wanted to be engaged in the process got a chance. Some people translated the whole article, some people translated 3 articles, some people edited, co-edited some of the work, some people translated 1/3 of an article, but everybody who wanted to do something got a chance to do so. And we were moving really, really slowly, prioritizing participation over the outcome, but it turned out quite good for a collection that was translated by 20 people and then edited and corrected by me and my colleagues from the publishing cooperative, sorry. So if you have more question about how anarchist and feminist principles were implemented in our processes, we can talk about that later in the Q&A part or the discussion part. So now I will start telling about the book itself. So the main idea of the collection of articles is that feminist storytelling about war is the most radical act of dissent, because the mainstream narratives about war tell us that it's inevitable, and that states and their armies have a legitimate monopoly over violence and can start wars and lead wars and end wars, and it's all up to those state agents who have the power. And there's also this mainstream common knowledge that some wars are just, or that they are necessary for some greater good, or they are fought against the enemy who's so evil and will destroy us if we won't wage war against them. And feminist research and feminist storytelling challenges this narrative, all these narratives, by analyzing violence as a structural issue that's not so evident or even invisible. So yeah, that's like the optics or the point of view that all of the authors from this collection of articles share. They also, like, there is the word feminist in the like on the cover, and among the contributors of this book, there are quite various definitions of feminism, but they all agree on like 2 or 3 things that like they could all agree with the bell hooks, whose quote you can see here, that feminism is a movement to end sexism, sexist exploitation and oppression. And so all of the authors here, they view feminism from like the intersectional point of view, that feminist struggle is not the main struggle or the single struggle, but it's interwoven with other struggles and with other contexts. And also the editors and the authors agree that it's impossible and futile to study militarism or war in isolation from patriarchy, racism, capitalism, because they all function simultaneously. So they study war in relation to the economic and social systems, which I, as a conflict researcher myself, can agree on and also implement in my research and in my work. Oh, yeah, that I already said about feminism, that this book does not rely on a single definition, and in each chapter there are some variations to that. But yeah, there are some commonalities. So, what are some of the solutions presented? They mostly focus on economic restructuring, be it through a welfare, like the establishment of a strong welfare state, or through autonomous collectives and autonomous work, so like the anarchist approach, like arms abolition and nuclear abolition, centering indigenous knowledge, and some of the chapters, they heavily focus on that, both in the context of Middle East and Australia. Then the articles also touch upon memorializing war, about how we remember war, what narratives are there, and how they influence the wars that are fought now, and how like these narratives can lead to new wars. And yeah, so, and there is quite a big diversity among the authors, and even a greater diversity among the people whom they interviewed or cited, which I find really, really important. So that's not a like just some academic book. Some of the texts from it are quite poetic, and I will tell you about the most poetic one now. So the book starts with an article named Gira, Indigenous Women's Knowing, Being and Doing as a Way to End War on Country. Hi. Что? Тебе нравится, как я рассказываю? Okay. Yeah, she's a cutie. Okay, so it's written by Jessica Russ Smith, who she herself belongs to the indigenous population of Australia, to the Wiradjuri people. And these people, they have the concept of Gira, that means womb and means future. And the and like in this term, in this concept, past, present, and the future meet and are interwoven and connected. Just like all living things in the country, with capital C, which is not like a state, but more like a land. In Russian, we would say more like земля, probably. That, was страна, but like more of a territory and all the things that are on it, like the land, water, people, animals, the ancestors who lived in it, the future generations who are to come, the stories, the song lines, and all of that is connected. And like, okay. So, and when the colonizers come, they are destroying the country not just because they kill people or they burn the forest or they pollute the water, but also because they have no concept of the country, they have no connection to it, and they have another relationship with the land, which is the colonial one, the settler colonialist one, not the indigenous, not like the indigenous, and it destroys everything. And Jessica, the author, also writes about the bushfires in Australia in 2020. Maybe you remember all this news, like all the videos with herd koala bears in the news. So it was like this one of the greatest bushfires, and she wrote the article around that time. So and she writes about how these bushfires and other natural disasters are not only man-made, but also perpetuated by this the lack of connection to the country, capital C. And also, the author highlights the relationship between grandmother and granddaughter in her article and says that it's of great significance because this is how the past and the future is connected, and through our grandmothers we are given the stories and given the relation, the relationship to the country, and all the things are given to us, and our grandmothers guide us, and through this relation, the responsibility to care for the past and for the future is given to the next generations. And that's the author writes really poetically about that, about this relationship, and also about the womb and the past, the present, the ancestors. And I love this chapter. I really recommend reading that. So that's the indigenous, a perspective on indigenous ecology, meaning on the living on the land, in the environment. And just before we go to the next chapter, many chapters are there are some chapters on the same topic but from different perspectives, and there is one more chapter on ecology. It's on the rights of nature, and it's a purely legalist approach. And it's really interesting to read these two chapters together and to compare them and see how they contribute to each other. So, and the next chapter that I will be talking about is called One for All for One, Taking Collective Responsibility for Ending War and Sustaining Peace. It's written by Heidi Hudson. Heidi Hudson is a South African researcher. And she is also writing about an indigenous practice, not being indigenous herself. She's white. So she analyzes the practice of Ubuntu, which translates the word, it's an African philosophy or a set of philosophies, and it translates to English as I am because we are. It's like the theory or the teaching of everything being connected to one another and of how people influence each other, and then one person comes into being like they are, like as they are, because of all the relations of other people around them, and because of how other people are and what they do, it influences what you do. So in this chapter, the author criticizes the rights-based understanding of peacebuilding and highlights that the war affects communities greatly, and that the war is connected to the lived realities of the communities and to the discourses in the communities much more than we think when we are taking like the international politics approach or the rights-based approach. So it's not just like something that this politician and this politician does, but also we are all connected to war and militarization in like real, tangible ways. And therefore we have the responsibility to resist. And she then analyzes that through a feminist reading of the Ubuntu and through the ethics of care. And what I find important in these articles is that she also talks about the role of women at length. Not only about women as the agents of building like a sustainable peace, but also about the role of women in militarization or like in the conflict inducing narratives, because and she talks about women being responsible for violence or proliferation of violence, sometimes in such ways that, for example, there is like, and here the author describes a practice from rural communities that to have more chances as a groom, like a young male person should have some wealth. And in some communities, it's in the form of cattle. Like the more sheep you have, the best your chances at marriage are. And that's something that is also still there in many communities, like regardless of if it's like money or sheep. And because like women in these communities want a richer husband, the men are like pushed to steal by the like, not by the women, by individual women, but like by the discourse that's there. And so after like a person from one rural community or one village steals cattle from another village, it may incite violence between these two villages, and it just contributes to this culture of violence in the society. And when we had our discussions and workshops and dialogue practices, so the presentations is not the only, and the translation is not the only thing we do as a collective. I will talk about that later. So when we did workshops and discussions, we also discussed how, in the Russian context, how men are also kind of pushed to join the army sometimes, because they need to be the breadwinner of the family, and to sign a military contract is the only way to be a breadwinner and to bring more money home in many regions. and in many life contexts, sorry. Yeah. So, the main thought here is that war is not just like someone's problem to solve, not just like the big politics problem, but we all need to be active in bringing the end to the war or to wars in general. Yeah, and then it's really important to reflect on our own role in the militarization and so on. And because even if you're just think that, oh, I'm just an oppressed person, like in Russian context, like Russia oppressed me so much, it's so bad. But sometimes you still, like not in all cases, but for example, if you are a person from the central part of Russia, or if you received, like regardless received education, good education because of this and that, or if you have like parents who work in organizations that are somehow connected to the government or just like did something to be more well off, like even if you personally didn't do anything like to wage the war against like Georgia, Ukraine, the war in Ichkeria or other wars, like you still may have won something from that and may have won something from the militarization without even like understanding that, or in some really, really not so obvious ways. And I don't say that all people, it applies to all people, but it applies to the majority of like white people from the central and northern Russia. So we had these questions at our workshops and that like such discussions. And for example, I personally also realized that even though the most part of my family is not Russian, they worked in the military complex and they like accepted this Soviet identity, for example, and like worked in the military and so on to move up the social ladder. And they were also like participating in that system. And because they were participating in the system, I'm much better off if I would be if my grandparents stayed in like the local indigenously populated village. So because of their like collaboration with the Soviet Union, I'm sitting here today, so to say. So it's also a part, like it was just like an example of how we can, of how like we can reflect on those issues. So even though I didn't like wage war myself, I'm still like connected to the system. Yeah, and even if I'm opposing the system, I still may have benefited from the system, or I may still benefit from the system. And it's important to acknowledge that and and it informs my activism a lot, I think. Yeah. So the next chapter, the more lighthearted and promising one, probably, even though it is about the Palestine-Israel context. So the article Feminist Organizing for Peace is written by Sarah Aroni. She's like a Jewish Israeli scholar and who all had I will come to that later. Okay, so and she suggests that feminist organizing offers women, including ordinary women, a way to engage in everyday politics and to resist the war and the culture of war. And by feminist organizing, she means projects and most like feminist organizing as a opposed to like feminist activism or something like that, and women's activism, which is another thing. And she like writes about many things and distinguishes them, but she understands feminist organizing as this process of women coming together because there is a problem and they need to solve that. For example, I don't know, their husbands, sons, and dads being conscripted or something like that, or like the abortion rights being taken away, like some real urgent problem, and that they come together and start doing something about that. So that's feminist organizing for the author. And even though such activism, it can take many forms, and even though it's not always or is rarely successful, as we can see in the case like with Palestine, so all the efforts that the author has taken part in and many other people in Israel and in Palestine are involved in, they didn't like bring they are not successful or unsuccessful in the sense that they didn't stop war, like they didn't bring peace through the territories, like to the land. But the author tells that we shouldn't see such things as the ultimate failure of our activism, but that we are still creating spaces for the development of personal and collective capabilities. Like we are building communities, we're creating alternative political visions, even if it's shared just like by a couple of people, and we are becoming involved in the with the everyday politics in some way. And also she writes that it's important that we ourselves are changed and are changed people after involving in the activism. So even though like feminist organizing can't really stop wars, there is some outcomes, even if it's just preserving ourselves physically or mentally. Yeah. So, yeah, here are some quotes from like the author, that our collective actions may have other purposes or other outcomes that stopping the armed conflict or resolving it. And then a quote from Audre Lorde that the author features. Yeah, so... Yeah, and she writes, feminist organizing in war is not only meant to achieve pragmatic outcomes. Regardless of the ability to transform violent conflict, peace activism can create political, emotional, and communal spaces that may counter the dominant masculine militaristic cultures of war. Yeah. So, and that was it. Yeah, and she also writes that not all of the... for example, when we work as an NGO or some organization that publishes the reports, normally we are supposed to publish that with numbers, like we did this, we did that, we met this goal and we met that goal, and we helped this many people, and yeah, we did so much stuff, and these are like the tangible outcomes. And the Aroni writes that not all of the outcomes are practical and tangible, and that not only the things like stated as our main goals in our manifestos or in our statements of purpose or in our grant applications are important. And personally, for me, this chapter was really supportive. At first, when I was reading the book in like March 2022, I'm just like, okay, whatever. But then, like after we published this book, we met with the collective of the translators and publishers and discussed what chapters stood out to us and how they changed us. And we understood that even though our book doesn't stop the war, it created a collective out of like 20-something people. It gave the people new skills. It gave people new perspectives on like the issues of armed conflict. It made people reflect on their own role in relation to the Russian invasion in Ukraine and to Russian colonialism in other ways. And not all of people in our collectives are Russian. Some of them are from Belarus, but like it's not the point. So, and this chapter helped us to reflect on our experience working, organizing as feminists and working on this book, and it was really supportive. Yeah. So one more sip of coffee and I will go on. Yes, so one more chapter that really stood out to me and to many people in the collective is the one on Kurdish women's liberation movements and the dissolution of the nation-state system, the imaginable dissolution of the nation-state system. And it's written by a Kurdish activist and researcher. So yeah, here's a map of the region of Rojava, or northeast Syria. If you are not, you don't know like the region, it's the region on the borders of Turkey, Syria, and Iraq, where mostly Kurdish population live, and Kurds are a large stateless ethnic group who live like on this territory, and they never had and don't have a nation state and are an ethnic minority in like the countries, even though they are the ethnic majority in the regions that constitute the like Rojava. So, and there were many movements, we may call them separatist movements or like nation building movements there, and like lasting for a long time. But now, like in the last maybe 20 or 30 years already, the main idea is that people are trying to establish an autonomous region there. It's like constituted of several cantons, like in Switzerland, and governed by this like community system, which is quite interesting, but it's another issue. But one of the main ideas now is that the liberation of women is necessary for like liberation of the people living on these territories, or like for the liberation of all, and and for that also the war should be ended and the national state system should be dissolved. And in this text, the author, her name is Eda Günaydim, if I remember it correctly, she writes about the theory of genealogy. It's a feminist, like woman-centered theory that criticizes Western feminism, white feminism, like liberalism, and the nation-state model. And it's quite interesting to read some texts from that. They are translated into Russian. And she connects that to democratic confederalism, like the system of municipal form of governing I was talking just a second before. And also she prioritizes self-sustainability. It's the idea that the villages should have, like the villages and the women in them should have autonomy. They should have like skills to build the homes, to like grow their food, but also like these all ideas and the idea of self-sustainability, they highlight that the women need to know how to fight for their liberation, their freedom. So they are like, and there are groups of women who are receiving military training. Like now, the chapter was written in 2020, and the situation had changed significantly, including in the last couple of months with like the coup in Syria and all of that, and like Turkish proxies, like waging even more war in the region. So, but like on paper, this theory looks like that, and yeah, women are encouraged to receive military training so that they could take the monopoly on violence from the state and protect themselves and their freedom and be more like self-sustainable and autonomous. Yeah, so, and now like this is the last chapter I will be talking about today. And let me think, how should I make the transition? Yeah, I just wanted to mention one more chapter in relation like to the Kurdish one, because some of the chapters, they focus, like most of the chapters focus on demilitarization, like, and how to disengage people from the military activities, how to like help the combatants transit from the combatant roles into civilian roles, how you can implement like the education for peace, so that less young people take on arms and go to fight, like this type of thing, and how you should build a strong nation state or a strong welfare state on like whatever basis, so that there is peace. But like this article about autonomy and women's like liberation and the dissolution of the nation state system is that, like, that's not the idea that the most of the authors of the book share, surprisingly, but we still decided to publish that, even though we don't agree with most of the chapters. Yeah, and we decided to publish that because the authors come from different contexts, and different contexts require different solutions. And even though like Kurds or the indigenous people living on the territories of what is known as Russian Federation now, they are oppressed by like these massive state. Not all of people are oppressed by states, but some people are oppressed by some paramilitary groups, as in some Latin America countries, and so on. So in some regions, people long for some like state system to bring more peace into the territories, or to be more governed by the government they like choose, not by the militias. Yeah, so it's like the whole other topic about contexts, and that not in all contexts people are oppressed by the like states that are above them, but there are also other agents that may be the main enemy for people in some situations. So now, going to the last chapter of today's presentation. So, also quite a poetic article by a researcher and activist, Kai Wilkinson, who also worked quite a lot on the context of Russia and Kyrgyzstan, and like LGBT, like the situation of queer people there. And I think I think the pronoun is they wrote this chapter about security, securitization, like safety, unsafety, insecurity, and how queering our vision of it would benefit all people, but obviously queer people and people who are not so normative for the Western societies the most. So the article starts with a poem written by the Pink Tank Collective and published in their zine in like many years ago, like 20 years ago. It's like that. The truth is, security is a lie. Your genes will not protect you. Liberal leaders will not protect you. The military will not protect you. Marriage will not protect you. The government will not protect you. LGBT organizations will not protect you. Money will not protect you. The closet, meaning like not being out as a queer person, will not protect you. Assimilation will not protect you. So yeah, it's just like the critique of the liberal LGBT liberation idea, and the critique of the normalization and assimilation idea that like if like it's proven that queerness as a genetic like inherent thing, it will protect you. Like nobody will be homophobic towards you if like you say that you were born like that. Like the liberal leaders who say that, yeah, go gays, will not protect you. Like they can turn against you. The military, like serving in the military and being just like, I'm gay and I protect my country, just like all other people, or I'm trans and I'm also conservative and I fight for the US, like it's the US context, obviously. It will not protect you. Like serving in the police will also not protect you. Like queer police officers and their like groups and clubs and all of this, like, how do you say, not gatherings, how do you say verein in English? Associations, yeah. Like they're like the queer police associations are a big thing in Germany, but it's not protecting queer people, it's protecting the state from queer people, but it's another thing. Like marriage and the legalization of marriage also doesn't really protect us because it can be overturned. The government doesn't protect us, LGBT organizations can protect us only to some extent. Like being wealthy doesn't really protect you against like hate crime, so it does a bit. Like, and being not out is also not really protecting you because you still suffer from all the discourse around you, and assimilation is also not really protecting you because you need to hide who you are. Just like normally I'm presenting this to a more like queer and like in more queer settings, so I just decided to go a bit in depth to explain some of the ideas. If you still have questions about like this piece, I can go into more details in the discussion. So in this chapter is focused on queer experiences and most on trans experiences, but explains how in these experiences the problem of securitization of our everyday life is just highlighted to a bigger extent. And the author writes, to be queer is to experience how definitions of security exclude and erase queers' bodies and lives, with the assumption of protection replaced by experiences of gendered policing and punishment for failing to be the right kind of man and woman. It's to know that because of how your gender identity and or sexuality are perceived, because of who you are, you're inevitably and unavoidably insecure, and that your body and being is a battleground in an everyday war. So the concept of the everyday war is important in this article and in some other in some others also, because like it's highlighted that even though we can conceptualize war and think about war as like the action happening on like this and this territory, like and like from this date to this date, yeah, it's so, but also like the militarization and the culture of violence is quite inherent to our everyday life. And even though some people who are more like normative may not like who have like are heterosexual, cisgender, like who have citizenship, who are white, who speak like the state language of the country, they are in, who were born here, who have all the documents, who like have a normative marriage, who are healthy, don't really notice that, don't notice this everyday like insecurity and struggle. It's a big thing for people who deviate from the norm in like quote unquote in some way. Yeah. So, and in this article, the key part is discussing the three sides of queer insecurity. It's the borders, where like all people are checked by people who look like not like their gender stated on their papers, or just like don't like go through the scanner, and the scanner identifies that some parts of their bodies are bigger or smaller than they should be according to their papers. Like they are marked up for another security check, just as people who are wearing hijabs, or like I forgot, like people who are wearing other like head coverings, like not only women but also men. So they they go to the like additional checks because the scanners or the security people think that they may pose a threat to other people. Like the other thing is bathrooms, meaning that if a person is gender non-conforming, they can't really go to either bathroom, because from like if a person looks too masculine, all the like women in like the women's bathroom may police them and be just like, oh, a man is here, oh no, the person will rape us right on the spot, and we need like to not let the person pee here and call the police and the security, oh no. And also, but if you look too feminine, you can't go like to the men's bathroom, which is also a thing. So and it will be an academic term, like your gender display, like how you look, is always policed by the people around you. So people start to act as like police to each other, which is a big problem, because we are not cops to each other. But yeah, some people do that. Yeah, and with bedrooms, it's the problem that many people, especially trans women, are killed when a person who is interested in having sex with them discovers that they are not a cis woman and kills them. And there were many like trigger warnings, but yeah. So yeah, it's like a big problem, mostly for trans feminine people, that they can be killed just because like men get quote unquote scared of them. And like it's another topic, because some people are just like there are many cases also in the US, and some like prominent cases that people, like the girls, the women, were killed because some guy catcalled them on the street, and then like somehow understood that the person is not cis and just like killed them on the spot. Because, and then in the court, they, like, the guys say that, oh, I was so scared because I didn't understand like what's happening, and it's and their like punishment is less because of like I was scared thing, and it's crazy, and it's happening a lot, and it's happening like not only in the US, but all over the world and also in Europe, and that's just horrible. So yeah. Wilkinson writes that the filter between security and insecurity is so much more fragile when you are queer. Something about your body and how you live in it, your queerness, and where on the planet you are doing whatever you are doing means that you at least think about insecurity. Sometimes in the everyday, in a way that a straight white man living somewhere as a citizen has, under normal peacetime circumstances, never considered that he would have to do. So just like constantly checking your environment and thinking about what you can do safely and what you can't do safely because you're like not, because you're looking different, because you don't speak the language, because your skin is darker, because like you are not as normative as you're supposed to be. If you can go out at night, if you can go out like safely in this neighborhood, if you can go out alone, or like the Nazis will attack you. If we like, it's not only about queer people, it's also like it's mostly seen in queer people, but like in many contexts, for example, young people who, like young immigrant people, especially boys, and like just women also feel all these insecurities to like various extents and for various reasons. Yeah, so we can discuss the article a bit more. Yeah, but what do the other authors suggest? Like from the other texts in this book, they suggest to take like the experiences of various marginalized people, or people who experience various marginalization into account. For example, like Black and Indigenous and people of color, and there is a whole chapter about how like the lives of Black and Brown people in the context of the military conflicts and like other events in the Middle Eastern, African, and like Asian countries are not really, like how the lives of the people are not really taken into account, and how like the victims are counted, and what is the narrative around the victims. And you can like maybe notice that in how Palestinian lives and victims are counted, and how the like it is reported on like killed and wounded Palestinians, and how it's reported on killed and wounded Israeli citizens or Israeli soldiers. Yeah, it's different. It's very different, because like it's just a couple of numbers against like whole life stories of people who were killed. Yeah, so that's about that. And there is like a whole discourse of dehumanization of non-white people. Then, and it's quite meticulously analyzed in one of the chapters about how like the losses are counted, and how we can, as activists, build our narratives so that they are more effective when we, or like as researchers who have this anti-war agenda, like how we can make our reporting better and more like human-centered. Then there is a chapter about listening to combatants and to ex-combatants when we want, like, when thinking and when brainstorming and when researching how we can build peace in different contexts, because even if it sounds absurd, most combatants, mostly in civil wars, but also like in wars fought between countries, go to war not because they want war, but because they want peace. So it's important to listen to what the people have to say, regardless of they're your enemy or not. Like if they cannot kill you at the moment, like, and if you have some distance, you can also try to understand what is the motivation of people. And also it's really important in the, like, after there is like some peace accord or something, and the combatants are, like, the soldiers are coming back into the civilian lives, it's really important to engage them into the peacebuilding processes, or else they would be excluded and they would feel that they are not heard and wage more violence or even more war. But the chapter from the book is really, really different from the context of, like, Russia, because there is discussed the mobilization of partisans and of women partisans in Colombia, and it's like a whole other thing, because that's the people who were struggling for their liberation from, like, the state, and then like demobilized. So it's like much different, but the key points of the article can apply to almost every context. Then there is abolition of nuclear weapons. It's like quite understandable. Then there is analysis about how war memorials perpetuate war. So how the way we remember war can lead to more wars, and how we can do that differently. And changing how the casualties are counted. It's connected to the BIPOC topic. So, and that's not everything. There is more. There is 15 articles, I guess, and they are quite insightful. Like, I don't agree with most of them, but I still think that it's a good reading, and that encourages us to engage in political imagination. And if you, like, are in a position where you, like, and there's also this idea that it's important to engage in that political imagination, not only when, like, you're some academic sitting somewhere, or not only when you are, like, safe and well off, but also in your everyday life. So understanding the contexts around you and trying to think, how could that be different, and what can I do to make it different? Like, it's sometimes possible even in this survival mode, and can really support you in these, like, challenging times. Like, so the questions we can reflect on, or you can, like, take home with you and reflect on, not only how can we end war, but also how the stories we tell about war perpetuate or prevent it, or how, like, our way of thinking about war in general as an issue, or like a single given war, for example, the war in Ukraine or some other, how it perpetuates or prevents it, and, like, what is the function of these narratives, where they come from, where we learned that, and what we can do with that. So what can we learn from feminist activism and feminist theory in order to prevent war and violence in the future? This book can be a good starting point for that, but doing research on your own and like reading more and thinking about that for yourself can also be quite fruitful. What are the obstacles to preventing war and violence? What obstacles do I see? What obstacles do I know of? And how could I contribute to overcoming that? And how could we collectively overcome them? So that's it. And now I would be glad to answer your questions. And if you want also to hear more from you about how the ideas from the book are relevant for Finland, like what is the context of Finland now, maybe what are the issues that make you feel insecure living here now, or what makes you feel secure, and like something like that. So we can discuss either the ideas or like the general issues of security and how we feel about them. I welcome your questions, and here are some links you can use to connect with us. So it's our Instagram, Telegram, and Proton Mail. Yes, since we worked mostly with people in like non-European countries, we decided to use Proton. It's problematic in the context of European Union because they read out European antifa to governments, but it was not our situation. I just wanted to mention that it's not the optimal thing, but it was our go-to email provider then. So.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I would like to give another book tip in the Finnish context of it's called Sota on Onnettomuus, War is a Disaster. It's made by Finnish visual artist Henri Airo, and it's about like as you said, like how the war is remembered. Like there's now this generation of Finnish, we haven't been in the war ourselves, but there's like huge kind of industry and like culture of commemorating veterans and stuff, and like how is that actually, like how the militarism has grown in Finland, and he's using a lot of like archive materials and also like some footage and stuff. So that's an interesting piece which is discussing about that from the Finnish perspective.
Yeah, I will ask you more about that after the event probably.
What was the name of the book?
War is a Disaster.
Yeah, is it translated to English?
I think there's all the texts. It's a photo book, and all the texts are in Finnish and English. I think there are some essays also.
What's the name of the author, because I cannot find it?
Henri Airo.
Henri, like
Airo. With E, Henri.
Henri Airo.
Yes.
Okay, I will just like keep some notes here.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Thank you. So, some more like any. Okay.
Did you say the book is self-published? The translation. What are your plans in distributing it around?
Yeah, like the book is published. We published it with a publishing cooperative. It's quite a popular anarchist cooperative in like Russia and like post-Soviet space. So we distributed it together like with the cooperative. The book is available in stores in Russia, because the police expertise was just like, we don't see any anti-war propaganda here. We can't read. Because like with the academic or academic style books, which have this like anti-war agenda, if they're not mentioning like Russia, Ukraine in particular, it's safe to publish them because it's just like some activist like thing, and it's highly theoretical, and like Russia, like neither Russia or Ukraine are mentioned there. It's not about the conflict, so you can publish that and sell in major alternative bookshops, like not in the like mainstream bookshops, but like almost every big city has our book in their like alternative bookshops. It's sold in Russia, it's sold in immigrant bookstores in Europe, like in Germany, in Austria, in France, in Poland, in Baltic countries. So yeah, and also we published the book in Russia, in Poland, and in Georgia. So like in Georgia and Armenia, it's also available, just like in the immigrant bookstores. Yeah. And it's available for like ordering it online, but it costs much more than here today, like much more. So if you want to buy it for €10 in Russian, please, you are welcome. And it's also available in English, and you can order that from like the English publisher for, I don't know, it costs like €15, I think. And it's also available online just for like downloading and reading for free. Yeah, because knowledge should be accessible. Okay. One more.
Extremely interesting presentation. I liked, honestly, I like the style, how you chose the colors and the fonts.
Thank you.
And I liked a lot about the connection to indigenous people. For example, the womb/future thing. If I can ask some questions in this point, among everything, wouldn't the main solution to any war be to fight for the men's rights not to be forcibly conscripted to the war? Like, in my opinion, the suggested solutions, they somewhat work like in indirect ways, like, for example, saying we are supporting the families of those who don't want to give their loved ones to the wars, instead of supporting those like the men themselves who are taken to the wars. It's like supporting the families of rape survivors instead of supporting the rape survivors instead as themselves.
Okay, yeah, it would be one of the solutions, but not all countries have like this obligatory military service or don't have conscription. So it's also contextual.
Yeah, perhaps I was thinking more about Russia and Ukraine.
Yeah. And also, I know that in Finland there is like the obligatory military service for men, and I know that they are like conscious abstenders, but I don't really know much about that. Yeah, I think that like not going to serve your country is also like, and yeah, it's also a really, really important and valid form of
I just
protesting.
think that could be one of the big solutions, because like vast majority of soldiers were forced to be the soldiers, and even in those countries, like for example, you take US, where they don't legally have a forcible army, only if they're not in an official war. But if they are, for example, some Vietnam, then it's again forcible for everyone.
Yeah, totally.
I think it's a good point that in general, like Sid talked also about discourses, like there is a huge violent discourse towards men as like whole, sex, that it's some sort of pictured as a duty and importance, and it's definitely a generalized issue, and I think in the core of feminism, like it's always when there's more diversity in decision making, things are also changing and getting maybe more equal, then I think it's an important topic to maybe change the idea of
I'm not actually sure if it's about like changing the viewpoint, but more about changing the elites who are benefiting from this. Because, for example, the presentation also said that changing masculine war-ish narrative, which is indeed true and important. It was talked, like, if I now remember correct, about Gaza or Syria.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, for example, in Syria, there's almost like 200,000 people killed, and 90% killed civilians, not even combatants, and 90% of them were males. So perhaps the masculinity is not the problem, but the problem is about the wars and who started them.
Actually, the book has talks about that. May I disconnect my presentation already? I think, yeah. Okay. Yeah, so that I can take notes in my private notes, not here. Yeah. So the book talks about that and talks about like elites and diversity in the decision making, and how like just adding women or just adding queer people is not a solution to the militarism at all. For example, like with the discourses of feminist foreign policy in Finland, in Sweden, in some other, like in Germany, if you talk about feminist foreign policy a lot, if you finance the projects, and even if the Minister of Defense would be a woman, it wouldn't change a thing, because like the masculinity is still there, and the patriarchy is still there. So just like changing men to women, or like cis people to queer people, doesn't really change anything if it's the same system, because people already have risen to the position in the same system, and they've taken the position in the system. And it's so absurd how it's all now in Germany because there are with their support for the state of Israel and sending weapons there and stuff, it's really disturbing to see, and with the violent how do you say that, violence towards people protesting, protesting for the ceasefire or free Palestine and boycotting Israel. The minister of inner affairs is a woman. The woman from the green, eco, queer friendly party, and it doesn't change a thing in the discourse. It doesn't change a thing in the actions. And that's the one of the disturbing things, because I'm a researcher also. I'm an activist and a researcher, and I study armed conflicts and societal conflicts. And before the Russian invasion of Ukraine started, I thought that the feminist foreign policy thing and stuff is a good solution, because oh, it focuses on the equality and it focuses on this and on that, but it's still the white feminism about like the girl boss. We will make more women politicians under the same like nation state capitalist patriarchal system, and it will just get better. And I'm just like, oh hell no. Yeah, and now like I'm in the program with this focus, and they just like pretty much teach us how you can be a good agent in this system of so that Germany and other European states can benefit more from conflicts in like third countries and ending them and building their businesses and like their charity and like gathering even more money with their charities by being in this war and post-war context. And I'm just like, oh my fucking god, it's just like, it's disgusting. Yeah. So, and now I'm like, now unfortunately, like, and the whole, like in my course, we have like 40 girls and 3 guys. So, and in the ministries, in the charity organization, in the political organizations, in the political parties, there are lots of women in Europe and lots of like some percent of queer people, but like being female or being like not cisgender doesn't make you like not a problem, unfortunately.
There was...
Yeah. Sorry, yeah.
Firstly, thank you for the lecture. It was really nice, and I'm definitely buying the book. Yes, you mentioned that you were disagree about some topics there or chapters. Can you maybe get a bit deeper about the Kurdish women? What's the name? What's your opinion about it as an editor? And you also said that you disagree with the most of the articles were like listed there.
Yeah.
So can you maybe say a bit more?
Yeah, so I will start with the Kurdish chapter. I'm not so good with the names of all the organizations in English. So there are these organizations, military organizations that are like political and military organizations, and like the women's military organization in like the Kurdish military organization for women, or like composed of women, is a separate body from like the general military of like the region, and they are like there is not like one military but many groups, like semi-autonomous groups, and the form of governing is really interesting there. And the idea is that, but it's like in theory, and like it's better to read about that and then like read the chapter and then read the Wikipedia and then read like in English Wikipedia and then like the sources. So it's like it's a really complex issue, and I'm not so sure about how things are like actually going now, and I won't go much deeper because also some like the chapter is quite idealized, but even women who carry like weapons and know how to fight or in the army are still quite oppressed at home, or when they come back from the military, or like are still subordinate to like the male officers. But it's like it's a whole issue, and I can maybe recommend reading the sorry, I got distracted. Like there is a journalist, Lisa Shishko, who reports from Syria, like from this region, and from some other, like from Rojava and from some other regions, and her Telegram channel is called Women Life Freedom, but it can be googled like Lisa Shishko. She's a reporter who publishes like first-hand news from the region, and she's leftist, unlike some other reporters who are there. So she's really nice, and she has a Telegram channel in English, Woman Life Freedom, and she has a Telegram channel in Russian. It's like Женщина, Жизнь, Свобода.
Sorry, I cannot find that. It's
Instagram is definitely has.
It's like it has this picture on the like in Telegram.
In Instagram as well. So.
Instagram as well. Okay, so that's like she has this first person account of the events there, and it's like not as idealistic as described in the chapter, but yeah. So, and like the chapters I don't really agree with are chapters, like it's not that I don't agree with them, it's that I have many questions to the authors and to their perspectives, and I'm just like, for example, there is a chapter on Kashmir, like the Kashmir Valley, the region, yeah, and there is a civil war for so many years now, and the authors of the articles, both Indian researchers from like these Western style Indian universities, write that, oh, maybe we should like just educate the Kashmiri people in the valley so they make better education for the youngsters so they don't take up stones to throw into the state military who oppresses them. Good solution for war, like not ending the oppression, but like just teaching the kids that the other people, the military people, are not their enemy. And I'm just like, what? No. So it's like only perpetuating the oppression. It's just like, oh, let's tell them that these bad guys are not bad guys, and that you should, like, as an oppressed person, have more understanding for your oppressor, not throw stones at them, and it will get better. And I'm just like, okay. It may get better for the oppressors because they are not thrown stones at. It's like, yeah. So some of the articles are quite absurd. And there is also a really abstract chapter on building a post-war sustainable economy that's quite disconnected from any reality. It's just like an economic model that can, it's like in after-war settings, you should rebuild the infrastructure and like just go into the details about what infrastructure needs to be built and why. And maybe it's not so obvious for people who are not in the field. And yeah, this book is not written for people who are in this like field, doing their research in this field. It's more like a handbook for students and for like the general audience. So I just really disagree with how some of the research is done, but I also disagree with like and find really absurd like half or more of articles and like inputs on the topic in general. So this book has like a good percentage of insightful and well written and well researched things, but not all of the chapters are of like solid academic quality or like can pass the reality check. So yeah, and it's really interesting to read this book because of that, because like even 2 chapters on ecology, like the rights of nature and the like Gira one, they clash with each other, and like the Kurdish one and the Kashmir one also clash with each other. And it's like really interesting because it's not just one perspective, but many perspectives. Yeah, and the editors of the original collection of articles also don't agree with all articles, but they excluded only one article. And if we're streaming, I'm not allowed to talk about that. Yeah, so I already feel like I talk too much shit about the field I'm working in. Just like